Environmental Management Policy Meeting, May 4th, 2023 to order. If we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, introductions. I'm Bill Emerson, like I said.
Kathy Luther with NERC staff.
Jen Birchfield, NERC staff.
Flora Baum, NERC.
Bob Forster, Town Accounts.
Reggie Cortez, MS4.
Ryan Sigdred from Indiana.
Kevin Lee, NERC staff.
Thank you. Okay, we do have our minutes from the February meeting. Do we have a motion to approve?
I read them, so I make a motion that we adopt the minutes as printed.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second. All those in favor, or any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Thank you. No public comments. No public comments for anyone.
Do you want me to comment about the annual meeting now?
No, that'd be announcement.
Yeah, that could be announcements. Yeah. Not a great turnout today. Especially compared to the last one. Last meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
moving on. Kathy.
Maybe you shouldn't have said, maybe you shouldn't have put in there 2050 plan, that kind of stuff.
Excuse me.
Maybe.
People to sleep.
well, I'm glad, he was bringing in a speaker and I'm glad that we could
Yeah.
get that done today because that would be embarrassing. Well, those of you who are here, and some of you may have seen some of this before, this is our 2050 plus, NWI 2050 plus is out for public comment until tomorrow, last chance. And this presentation has been given at several meetings. I actually have basically put in like one teaser slide for all the transportation junk and expanded the environmental section, and Jen did too. So figured this is the environmental committee. We'll care about that more. We don't care about everything. So if you've seen some of this before, bear with me. And some of the people, some background on why we have an NWI 2050 plus. We're required by federal law as an MPO to have a long-range plan, to update it every 4 years, and have at least a 20-year planning horizon. Those requirements are from Federal Highway and FTA. Hence, some people will have, commented that why do we spend so much time on transportation in this plan? It's a transportation plan. So we continue with our previous NWI 2050s critical pathways, which are on the post over there, which we didn't really change that. We just built out some of it that wasn't very in much depth before. We try to include practical and measurable solutions that we can actually shoot for. But some new emphasis areas that came out of the Infrastructure Act, or resiliency, housing, carbon reduction, and freight planning, which we've always had a little bit of freight, but it was the requirements for that were beefed up, and housing is a new area that we've never had responsibility to plan for in the past. So the timeline for this plan, we actually started, in 2019, we adopted NWI 2050. In 2022, we brought on some consultants to do some technical heavy lifting on transportation on 4 topics: active transportation, land use, freight, and transit. The roadway section chapter and the environmental chapter were done by staff. And then last year we were all out at county fairs and stuff trying to get public input, and then here we are. We are hoping to be able to adopt this in July. We are having a challenge with air quality conformity right now, which is a requirement for our plan that currently is dependent on federal and state bureaucracy, so the July may be aspirational. oh, this is just a big list of all the stuff that has to be in there, but, yeah.
Right.
Also, we receive every year a list of, planning emphasis areas from the federal government. And this is just telling you our 2023, federal planning emphasis areas include climate crisis, transition to clean energy, equity and justice 40. These are the ones that most impact us. Federal Land Management Agency coordination, which would be the national park, and planning and environmental linkages. So the 25th NWI 2050 Plus has 7 chapters. I'm not presenting them in this order. I did not think of changing that slide because I'm going to do all the other stuff and then do climate and environment last. So if people have more questions. This is just showing us doing public outreach. Sadly, that is me in the front. We actually talked to people. It was actually fun. I'm just saying to show people a real physical map. And can the teenagers read a map? No. I also enjoyed bugging couples, like, who can find where you live on a map? Anyway, and watch them argue. It's fun.
Did you give away things?
Hmm?
Did you give anything away?
Prizes? No, I don't think we had any prizes. Bike maps.
So we give away maps and bike pins and
Oh, yeah.
other information
Yeah,
about the
that's what I
2050 plus plan.
Yeah.
So, or and about 2050 plus, we gave away lots of stuff, whatever they asked for, whatever they're interested in.
Best way to get people.
Yeah. Chocolate. That's true, chocolate. So this is I wanted to just, very briefly on some of the transportation. In the past, you've seen in our active transportation plans this prioritized trail map. This time we added another section trying to connect those, right, to make it more of a functional transportation network. So it's hard to see on this map, but there's some green lines that are the trail corridors, and we're trying to connect those, find the most suitable, safest roads that, if not now, should be incorporated into that network so that you could actually get places off trail and get to trails without driving your car full of bikes, which I've personally done. So that's a pretty major change for this section of the plan if you've seen it before. Freight, that was a really long section. I think, what did I put in here? Oh, so a lot of this, they evaluated a variety of things, safety issues, casualties from rail and trucks, gaps in quality, like the pavement is messed up so the trucks can't drive there, or the railroad tracks are a problem, or places where the traffic is slowed down by trucks or trains, and then came up with these gap areas that need improvement, which you can't see very well, but if you're interested in these topics, you should look at the freight chapter.
Didn't that also include crossings that had the highest accident rate in there?
Yeah, that was one of I was gonna lead with that one, because it was like death, but I decided to go with this one that was cumulative. Plus, I think the death one was like 40 years, it was a long time period the data was from.
Well, it
So
doesn't have to be death, it could be just accidents.
I guess casualties, yeah. I think I left that one in for the,
Okay.
oops, so again, teasers, look at this and then go, this is, I put this in, this is how we classify roadways. So there's interstate, obviously, expressway, freeway, principal arterials, minor arterials, major collectors, and minor collectors, all of which are eligible for federal funds through NERC's planning processes. Local roads are not. So if you're interested in more of that, there's also, yeah, here you go, Reggie. This is the crashes density map.
Kevin, look at that, that's a crashes.
So I keep wondering if they should normalize this for traffic counts because, anyway.
That might help,
Yeah, because that's just where there's more traffic, so there's more crashes.
right.
But that's what a density map does. So
That's a really good point. Sorry.
we're like the science people here at this meeting. We're all like, why did they normalize that?
Right.
Okay. It's a small group, I apologize if I'm slightly overly informal today. So that the roadways, a lot of the effort in roadways is about reducing traffic congestion and increasing safety and managing the pavement quality in a reasonable condition. Transit. This is our existing transit, which you can see there's little clusters of transit in various cities. And then you can also see the South Shore Rail across the north, and then nothing in between. So we had the transit contractors do quite a bit of different analyses, and we are not proposing any specific new operators. We are not proposing who should do what. We are suggesting that a better system, if we were to have a regional system, there might be two approaches to designing said regional system. A grid system, which is just connecting major roads and major communities.
And the double track is in there, right?
Yeah, well, double track's on the same track.
Yeah,
The Westlake is in it. This is what we have now.
okay.
Versus a hub and spoke kind of model. This one is designed more around destinations, for example, the national park. There are just two approaches. This approach, I think, I'm looking at this is more economical.
Yeah, this one's much cheaper and also requires a lot less buses.
Right.
And to answer your question, Reggie, on the left side there, it does have where stop would be at the future Westlake corridor stations.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
It's hard to see because it just has it has
Yeah.
their logo on there, but they are on there.
it's hard to see because I'm old.
And it's
Well,
far away.
And I really want to encourage people interested in this topic to go to our website and read the chapter.
Are these various individualized maps easy for persons such as the form to pull out?
Yes, and we could also provide them to you. Again, for this particular planning option, we did not weigh in any way on funding, the political aspects of it. We just talk about the pros and cons of connecting things better than they are now. So land use and housing, land use we've done before, housing is totally new, so I did put a few more slides on this because it also bears on some of our natural resource planning and other issues. This is just showing between 2010 and 2020. The left-hand side shows where the most housing units, the darker color is the most housing and the lighter color is loss of housing units. And on the right is population change. Nothing there is too, I think, unexpected. One thing I noticed that the population change, if you were here when we did the 2040 plan, I think we were anticipating something like 950,000, 960,000 people in the region by 2040. And now we're really projecting 900,000 by 2050. So the population growth curve is now projecting lower than it was. But the thing is, we're like building housing units faster than we're building population. And this you can't read, I know, on the screen, but this was a housing analysis, and it kind of shows for it's a lot of discussion about price and market and demand, and basically they have different affordability points based on income. And the chart on the right maybe shows it the best. The blue is how many housing units we have. The yellow is how many rental units we have. The green dot is what the demand should be in that price point based on people's income in our region. So we have a shortage of housing at the very low end. We also have a shortage of housing at the upper ends, and too much housing in the middle. So what that really essentially means,
Too much according to who?
according to the market and income, there's standards of how much you should pay for your housing for your income. So it's based on all the federal standards of that, and,
I understand.
I know.
But that's an excellent question, because we're struggling with it is, I'm sorry, Kathy, you said we were informal. You know, we are updating the regional strategic plan, Ignite the Region, and housing is critical there. And I've been in multiple meetings where affordable housing term is used and watched body language in those audiences, because everybody has a different definition on affordable housing than the other person. And so I have been advocating within our shop that we need to start figuring out a way to create terminology that transcends from a Summit County strategic plan to an individual community. So that when Brenda's saying affordable housing and Nursery's saying affordable housing and Heather's saying affordable housing, or Ignite is, that they're all talking the same price point.
So
That's a big problem.
So it's-
that I use,
but it's
where I was
so-
struggling with that.
it's not, here's what I think, based on what I've learned just from looking through this chapter, is that affordability isn't a price point, it is based on your income. What's affordable is income, it's a sliding scale.
Well, then a definition of that, so
Yes,
that people
so-
understand that.
And what you see in this chart, what it really means is, so there's not enough housing for the people in the lowest income bracket. So they have to really, really, really stretch and spend too much on housing to get someplace to live in the next bracket, that gap of people. And so then that affects their whole lifestyle, right? What they can, the rest of their budget. But the people on the upper end, they might be bidding up the prices in the lower two categories and raising the prices so that, so like more expensive housing for them, and this is surprising to me because I usually don't think we need more big houses. A few more houses for them, they wouldn't be bidding up the price of these other lower, cheaper prices. And I've actually seen in Belleville, like people buy a small house, especially out by the lakes, and then like basically rebuild it into a 3 times bigger house with the same septic system.
They're doing that a lot
Mhm.
at the lakefront communities, particularly in
Yeah.
LaPorte. They're buying these old homes, tearing them down,
Mhm.
and then building multi-million-dollar homes in the process. And so trying to figure that out.
So this might be a good chapter if you've got some economists, Kay, to look into this to see what because this was, a consultant did all the analysis. We could take with it from it what,
Who did the analysis?
RPG,
RDG,
or DG.
Our D as in David,
yes.
thank you.
Well, the other approach you might take is looking at what happens with the rental housing market.
Yeah.
A lot of the home prices are driven upward by the competitiveness of investors.
Mhm.
And we never think about, these aren't necessarily the people living in the houses.
Right.
And the other pertinent thing is workforce development and trying to deal with our transportation issues, because people are farther removed, or they can find an or a house that they would feel comfortable with
Mhm.
making payments on,
Right.
whether it's rent or mortgage. But that's always been the problem as far as I've been around.
So in this chapter, they did an analysis of every municipality in the region, and I guess that did they do the unincorporated areas too?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Not
So
sure.
that
West Rex's closest one.
every municipality will get a report of itself to see where its gaps might be in a housing market.
Does that come after this whole thing has been approved, that they can get their hands on that?
I think it's in there now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's available for everyone to read as a draft right now, but it's still up to public comment, but that ends tomorrow, so.
Okay, good.
And then we have
So, yeah, lunchtime reading.
we have a Sensible Tools follow-up handbook that we're hoping to do training on going forward. Anyway, the other part of the housing is land use, and they looked at 4 different scenarios. So if we make the projection that by 2050 we'll have 900,000 people, we would need 50,000 new residential units to fill those gaps in housing new people. So, and then we put out 4 different scenarios of where and how we would put those new housing units. And the scenario 1 at the top is showing kind of how we've been doing development in unincorporated areas with 1, maybe 2 houses per acre, large lot. If we put if we develop in that kind of ratio that we've been, we would need 40 square miles of land to put those 50,000 units in. And then we present 4 different scenarios with different percentages of density. If we could do, a recommendation is scenario 4, which would be try to have at least 4 to 5 units per acre. That is not high density like a city.
No.
It's still a pretty big lot, but it seems like a more reasonable mental adjustment than, I think when people say we need more, that hear the word density, they picture skyscrapers in Chicago, or, and that's not what we're suggesting here. Anyway, the scenario 4 would be our preference as a regional, in this draft that's not adopted yet, would be a recommendation, and adding 50,000 units at 4 to 5 units an acre, we would only need 16 square miles of land to house the same number of people.
Are you looking at density then, something based like Coffee Creek?
I don't think we're in that level of detail, but yeah, I mean, I think it'd be, the 4 to 5 people per acre is on average, right? You could put more density and then have more open space, the conservation development. So that's the big through point for the housing and land use section. And again, we don't have any control over that. We can only educate, inform.
So, I realize that you aren't in charge of anything, like forum's not in charge of anything, but we just talk like we are. So as the next step for this, will there be like an internal dialogue with the communities to see where, will there be like a housing summit, I guess, that NERC would sponsor?
I don't know. I don't know that we are in a period of transition. The transportation director that led us to this plan has left. We have a new transportation director, Tom Vanderwood. He's actually local. But I do know that we have had a Sensible Tools update in the wings for a long time. And we're hopefully finally going to bring that out this fall, late summer, early fall. And then we're hoping to do a lot of workshops and training we could do training for your zoning board or your planning commission or staff. And obviously we'd work with any community that asked us for technical support. Maybe housing summit is a good idea.
Kate, you see reaching out to a certain group, I don't know, to get people to attend, I don't know.
You know what, I'm so far out of my comfort zone
Yeah.
on talking like this, and I'm sure my staff, my coworkers at the office would be like, what is she doing opening her mouth?
Yeah.
But, housing is a topic at so many meetings I go to, and we're dancing around terminology, we're dancing around answers, we're dancing around asking questions, we're dancing around planning. Everybody's is at a different level, and so right now, this information that Kathy's presenting is probably the most detailed, it is the most detailed collection of information that I've seen in a meeting where we're talking about housing. So it's like, what do we do with it? One of the things that we are all guilty of doing is creating a report that sits on a shelf.
Right. Or in a
So,
box.
how do we, I'm focused on Ignite. Ignite is much like a 2050 plan. It's a collection of initiatives that the forum has no authority over. no funding to do. But we have one thing that NERC doesn't have, and that's the ability to be pushy. So by putting this kind of
Did you just
stuff,
discover that?
pardon?
Did you just discover that?
Oh, no, this
You've
is
been
for the other
pushing
people.
all
I
the
already
time,
take
yeah.
ownership of being pushy for decades.
Well, so typically when we, in the strategies, we look at something like this and different topics. Okay, who should we lead? Should we assist? Or should we, just kind of help, right? Help and assist sound like the same. There's a third, like, and so I would think on housing, we wouldn't really be the lead. We'd be the helper, but so we would identify champion,
How about educate?
educate, yeah, that would be
It's
our,
always,
yeah, maybe that's a lead, assist, or educate, and who's the lead on it? I feel like on this one, the counties and the municipalities would have to be the lead on the land use.
But it's gonna take the municipalities, Brendan, when you identify who from your municipality would you want to sit at this table that would understand this? Because you don't want to invite people that are sitting here going, I don't have a clue.
Right, I mean, you need your builders, your developers,
Yeah.
We
I mean,
also
there's
need
a
your
real-
planners.
your planners and your
Planners.
realtors probably.
I mean, each municipality has a
Different.
different,
Yeah,
The unincorporated areas
Working
need
with
our
the-
help too, because
to some
we've got a lot of
extent, right?
emerging areas that are coming out.
Hmm?
The unincorporated areas need help too.
Yeah.
A lot of emerging areas where
Yeah.
large developments are happening with, no, well, the county.
yeah,
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I mean, we're getting help now from the county, but
Right.
a lot of times we were kind of left
It's
like,
the Wild West.
help.
Well, it takes a while to develop the ordinances with the guidances such as these documents to support the
Yeah.
decisions the executives make, the commissions make, and that way we get buy-in from the public to just to do something, especially when George was talking development. I remember 40, 50 years ago, we used to have very few rules attached to development, and we had relatively small lots, septic fields that George and I have talked about from time to time. You could have half an acre, and part of that was also the way the state was operating.
Yeah.
Between building and the health department. And they increased the standards, the size of a lot of things, just to facilitate and avoid the problems we're having today.
Because you might have a septic tank and you
Yeah.
got a half acre lot, you really need about 4 or 5 acres to be able to accommodate.
right.
Today,
So then they put in a
require
cluster system and that. Unfortunately, the septic working group is meeting at work right now.
And I think the time to do this for Nervous would be when communities are doing their comp plans
Yeah.
and zoning updates. Like, I think Over's going through that process right now, and
Yeah.
Lake County unincorporated areas just did. So, with Nervous, once this is all done,
Yeah.
it puts Nervous to reach out to those communities, because that's got like a rolling schedule, sometimes that's every 5, 10 years,
Yeah.
depending on the community, so.
I mean, typically, our land use planner participates in any plan update that someone's doing, and that's our kind of link. We try to be on the committee or on the team and providing data.
Yeah.
And,
Kate, perhaps the land use committee, because we went great depth in the land use committee meetings.
Mhm.
So they
Yeah.
come up with that plan. Maybe there's some tie-in from what you're talking about to what we had to do.
I
Well,
like the idea of like some kind of like summit or.
Yeah.
thing.
there's a lot of coordination as to who
Yeah.
will all be the parties, but just to let everyone know, 2050 plan is in the Ignite matrix,
Right.
okay? It's listed there.
We usually put
but-
Ignite in.
Most people aren't gonna go hit the link, sorry, NRC people, and scroll through 500 pages. So what do we have that we're seeing in these meetings that would be,
Yeah.
a hook? I would shut up now, move forward.
No, I just think, I think you maybe like Heather or someone else, and you should have a sit down with.
But I
them
think
and-
once you identify who your
Yeah. Mhm.
outreach is, based on what the cities want, we could develop an educational, much scaled down program to show them what they have to do. Like you said, they're not gonna read all this, so we have to do the editing for them.
Right.
But we can't edit it unless we know who's gonna look at it.
And you can make the data more specific to their area. One of my frustrations with the comprehensive plan, originally, as we were developing that back in the early 2000s, a lot of the data was from other parts of the country. They weren't localized.
Yeah, we have a lot
enough
more
for my-
local or Indiana-based stuff now, and
And I hated having pictures and stuff of other parts of the country
yeah,
to give us direction when we already had examples. We just didn't look inward to try to solve our own problems in context with what we were faced with. So this is one of those data sources,
mhm,
as Bill said, can help drive comprehensive plans. It
Yeah.
just maybe needs to be more specific to the region or the area that they're looking at.
But didn't you say that you do have by community?
yeah, we did an analysis of the
So that's
housing,
that's
of the housing in
amazing
each
right there. I don't think
community.
we've ever had that before.
And,
What?
no, because, so that's a lot of what happens is the federal government tells us we have to start planning a different topic. So we added housing, we had never done that before. So now we have information, and then it's, we can choose what to do with it. What do we do with it? Do we put it on the shelf or do we bring it up? So, another thing in the land use chapter is to, look at that growth in the context of where there's already amenities that supports corridors and centers approach. And again, how much land are we gonna consume less if we can put people around there? So this is too small to read. Again,
You think?
and we really struggled with some mapping, so the map on the right was their first attempt at showing our conservation priorities, but we have a better map now. But, those would be areas where we really wanna see buffering and lower, or conservation development.
Okay, there's language issue.
Mhm.
Don't call it a conservation area, but I think the buffering is absolutely critical.
Yeah, and
When
there's a
you show
better.
that giant purple, blue, whatever color it is, because I need my cataract surgery.
Okay, so there's, okay, the light purple on the right is traditional, kind of square block development, or more urban development areas.
Oh, I
The
thought you.
purpley, that's the pinkish on the top, the blue purple is the kind of suburban, and then the orange is the exurban, 2-acre lot, unincorporated stuff.
I thought you said that was your conservation area.
No, the bottom one, the green areas. Just ignore that one, I'm gonna show you.
Is there anything in here that is gonna help you or him deal with the solar panel implementations, the amount of land that those are taking?
No, we have quite a bit in a whole section about solar ordinances and solar best practices for solar in the Sensible Tools. So what we did, we updated the first Sensible Tools handbook, which was a checklist for just basically competent development.
Right.
And then we have another volume that's all kind of technology and green energy and it's like advanced Sensible Tools. I can't remember what we named it. We gave it a name. Oh, you guys had so much interest in these other chapters. I only keep, these are not my topics. I'm just like, I've only seen the presentation 5 times, which is why I'm talking. And I went to the land use meeting, so I feel like I'm most confident. Okay, climate. This is also, we've been working, many of you have been on teams on the climate action planning framework for Northwest Indiana. We're branding that climate action NWI because that spells can. We can. And at this, I think we're looking at it as the larger picture. So we did an inventory. Now we're doing a planning framework for action. And I think then we're going to follow up with more focus on resilience. This one touches on resilience, but we didn't really go in depth on vulnerability and mapping. And then we could do that in like a 5-year cycle so that we are updating and monitoring and maybe 5 years is aspirational, given that it's taking a long time. And so once we finish the framework, we're going to be working with our Charter Indiana to help whatever local communities do their own individual climate action plans.
You're gonna work with
Earth Charter Indiana,
Earth Charter.
and IU, Environmental Resilience Institute. So, for those who haven't seen these predictions, these are actually from Purdue's Indiana Climate Impact Assessment. Depending on whether you go with the moderate emission or the high emission scenario, we're looking at 25 to 50 more days over 96 degrees. I converted all the Celsius ones into Fahrenheit, so people would know about me.
More striking.
And yeah, between 2 or 7 more extreme precipitation events. Some of this range is because it also, they only gave us predictions per county. So I'm combining the range of the county and the range of the predictions. That would be the Dunes Creek when the parking lot collapsed. So we did touch on this. The map on the left, the CDC has some social vulnerability mapping that's already done by county, which includes a number of factors in social vulnerability. And then NOAA has some special flood hazard reports by county for coastal counties. So combining all those, for example, we have 25,000 people living in the floodplain. That was 2019. Living in floodplains, which is about 5.6% of the population. And about 6% are elderly or in poverty in those floodplains. We have 3 schools, 2 police stations, 4 fire stations, and 1 medical facility in a floodplain, the 100-year floodplain. Those are all in Lake County. And 551 businesses in that 100-year floodplain. So that's a kind of some of the things that we know might be vulnerable in that more frequent storm environment.
Does your report name those things out?
This part, the climate plan will, yes. And those are available too online at NOAA's website. You can look at those. The one I didn't put it, didn't figure out how to make it fit was they had maybe I put it on the slide. No, I didn't.
It's easy to see on the NOAA website, much easier than this.
Yeah, it is. They also gave permits or new construction, new development in the 100-year floodplain, and they gave it like before 1986, and then between 1986 and 2016, and there was still like 12% and 15% in Lake and Porter counties of new development in floodplains. So that I thought was interesting.
You mean in flood hazard areas?
And literally all this was for a 100-year floodplain.
Right, the 100-year.
Yeah.
Flood hazard area.
Yeah. And this is all based on aerial imagery, so I don't think it goes into very much detail, and there could be, I think it needs ground truth. So into the emissions, this is our baseline in the region, 54.5 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. Industrial energy and infused industrial processes, clearly large percentages, but we also have transportation is the next largest, and then housing and businesses. But we also have data that would say that between 2016 and 2019, trees and forests removed 442,000 tons. So that's net.
Kathy,
Yes.
I don't know if this is an okay time to talk about, you talked about potentially having BP here at some point, talk about the sequestration plan.
Yes, they were going to come today, but the speaker that Michael wanted to bring wasn't available at the last minute, which I'm glad. But they are supposed to be at the commission in July
Oh, okay.
to talk about carbon sequestration and storage.
I don't know if you're all familiar with it,
Mhm.
the project that they're proposing at BP to remove the carbon dioxide and liquefy it from their process. I believe it's their natural gas.
Mhm.
They remove the hydrogen, they separate the hydrogen and the carbon dioxide out, they liquefy it, and they want to pipe it down to some county south of us to inject it into deep wells to store it and remove it from the atmosphere. So that there was they had a public meeting on that. It's been in the paper, but I just want to make sure everyone here is aware of it. It's a big
They
thing.
gave a presentation at IU, and
Okay,
it was interesting the number of questions students had,
Yeah.
particularly ones that live in the Jasper County area. So there's,
yeah.
yeah,
Who did a presentation at IU?
BP.
At IUN or
Yeah.
Bloomington? When was that one?
What did it say, 3 weeks ago or so, 2 or 3 weeks ago?
They're planning to give a presentation at the July 20th NERC Commission
Yeah.
meeting.
At which meeting? At which meeting,
July 20th NERC full commission meeting.
Okay.
Because even if the storage is in the Jasper and Newton, wherever, the pipelines would have to go through Lake Porter of the port.
Right. Did you get the information on the NIPSCO presentation too? At IU?
Yes.
Um,
The SharePoint thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in my inbox, but if I could, before you go to that,
I have some more stuff.
do you have more on hydrogen or on carbon sequestration?
I
I just was gonna
not
say.
as much as I wanted to, because I still study.
House Bill 1626 was signed by the governor
Yep.
just recently, and it is the bill that we got through the session this year painfully. I mean, it should have been a no-brainer. That calls for allowing DNR to create the permits necessary to implement a carbon sequestration project. So that is out there. So we will be working with DNR on that.
Right. And then, and also that if the landowner has property right in the storage space under their property, so that,
That was in 1209 last year.
oh, that was the other one, okay.
Mhm. Yes, there is provision for reimbursement to the property owner.
When did he sign 1626?
Pardon?
When did he sign it?
I think the first of May.
Okay.
I may be wrong on that. I've been wrong a lot so far today.
My graduate students did a paper on that bill, so I'm gonna make sure they got the signing right, the date right.
I'll look it up.
So in the,
Session
in the-
literally ended the 29th of April.
Okay, so then that, okay.
in the 2050 plus, I have just a very brief summary of the top 4 or 5 source categories. And then a lot more about transportation, because it's a transportation plan. So our science-based target for the region is a 63.4% reduction in emissions from the baseline by 2030 and net zero by 2050. So that means by 2030, and we did some forecasting. We included in the forecasting the NIPSCO's decarbonization process. They're eliminating coal, doing more solar and renewables. And so that does actually, we're predicting how much that will reduce the electricity emissions, which is pretty substantial. So by 2030, we will actually be only about 15 million tons over our target, which happens to be approximately the amount of the industrial process emissions, because that's the part that is hard to fix, that needs the carbon storage. So here's an example of our forecasting so we have population growth up to 900,000 by 2050. And we have some VMT, vehicle miles travel growth in the transportation sector. So if you look at the energy use, the blue is electricity, the green is natural gas, and the orange is all the other stuff that gets combusted at mills like coke oven gas and blast furnace gas and oil. So you can kind of see in here that by 2030, the electricity reductions from NIPSCO buys us almost our whole reduction, but then we could grow our way out of it. So we have to figure out how to grow with less carbon.
So would that mean something like incentivizing industry to use more energy efficient processes and something like that? Because what we do, we permit the equipment that industry has, and they are removing it from, and some things they're removing from their inventory. So once they remove that, there's a piece of equipment, like some of the coke, yeah. But that's a reduction in terms of what they're doing, because that is no longer in commission. But then as they are, I know they were, US Steel for one, was supposed to use funding that we helped them get to do some capital improvement projects. However, that didn't happen. They just took those dollars and took them to Arkansas. But that's the type of thing that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So if they're getting dollars from those capital improvements to reduce their carbon emissions, then, you know, maybe there's more incentivized programming that could encourage them to
So
update their equipment so that they're.
I feel like, and this is the position of Kathy. I think that in all the research I'm doing, I think that whole system up there is so interconnected, right? I think they're driven by market. I think they're driven by stock stuff that the most influence on their energy efficiency is going to be like stock prices and profit and regulatory requirements. So I don't know that we can afford as local governments to incentivize enough.
There are some things in their equipment.
Some things that they're, yeah.
So they're still using like heaters and, I mean, you have to look at there are things that they could do to improve it. And I can say that they're doing some of those things.
I think they are doing a lot of those things, most of them, but you're right, most of them have like at the corporate level, pretty big reduction goals, 25%, 50%, and a lot of them are making good progress, but that's corporate wide.
Okay.
It may be that they're doing it in Arkansas, so,
Okay, got it.
so maybe, yeah. But like I was wondering, are some of the gases that they're burning now, did they used to emit those in the atmosphere and they started burning them to be energy efficient and reduce pollution? And now, you know, so like, and this is what I think all that stuff's embedded, right? Like they make lime. I just think that it's gonna take a long time to decouple everything. The big stuff, I think you're right. I think around the edges, they can make, there's some
But
but
small things that we do, but we'll take those.
But I think the long-term goal, at least from what I heard on the BP project, the proposed project, is to expand to other industry.
yeah.
Right.
That could be a good, yeah.
But I was kind of drilling in, so even, okay, if they get this in place, they're 100%, they're stripping all the carbon off, and they've got the pipes and they're storing it, and, I mean, realistically, they have to be regulations, they have to get permits, they have to build all that stuff, they have to acquire right away. I don't see that being in place for 10, 15 years, just thinking about the world of regulatory things, and so maybe we gotta do everything else we can in the meantime. I don't know. This is another way to look at that same information about the targets. So the red lines are the 2030 target, and you can kind of see that in 2030, the light gray area above is that industrial process sector. And it is like, so it's not their energy use, it's their processes. It's, the orange is their energy use and burning stuff. The gray is stuff like, so if you cook limestone, it's calcium carbonate, you cook it, and the energy used to cook it is in the orange block. The carbon dioxide that comes off because you're cooking calcium carbonate is in the gray block. You can't make it unless that happens. So that's a piece that's really hard to abate. But my thinking is that's the part that even energy, I don't know how they're gonna fix that. That's gonna be the technology, getting the stuff up to, from pilot scale up to practice and implement it. So the right-hand side would be if we just talk about the other categories and take the industry away because it's off the table. I think we should. And then, so like if you do that, the blue line is the emission, all the rest of the emissions without the emissions there. And then the 63.4% reduction is on the right-hand side. So I felt really heartened by the 2030 projections. The 2050 is net, I don't know, net zero. And the green line is showing the negative 500,000 tons that the forests do take out.
Kathy, just as an FYI, the Department of Energy has a boatload, yes, a truly technical term, of grants available that are being pursued.
Yep.
Independent of Hydrogen Hub, with regards to those industry sectors that have been identified as high carbon emitting and difficult to abate categories. Steel processing is in that, as well as minerals and ports. And so all of our industries are applying for those dollars as it relates to them to try to do research on technologies and equipment and stuff along that line.
Yeah, and I do have that some explanation that these are hard to abate industries globally. It's not just, they're not just making it up, and it's technology. They're all trying to do it.
What do you call it? Hydrogen hub, is that what you called it?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah,
Hydrogen
Midwest
hub?
Hydrogen Hub.
That's what they're, okay, I didn't get that part. I like that, sketchy.
So this was just kind of the, looking at all the different sources, which ones are the highest sources, and then which ones we have the most ability to influence here at NERC and at the local government level. So it's just kind of a prioritization schema where the high emission, high influence areas might be residential and commercial energy, transportation, and maybe the forest and tree removal mechanism. Some of the ones that are pretty low emission and we have less ability to influence here at NERC, agriculture, land use change, solid waste management, water and wastewater. At the local level, you have a lot of opportunity to influence water and wastewater treatment and land use and solid waste. So it's not always, the levers aren't the same for NERC versus local government, but it's one way to prioritize action. And when we put together frameworks for local governments to do their own climate action planning, that this chart would change based on what they can influence. Here's where I talk about that. So some examples: Cleveland Cliffs corporate goal to reduce 25% of their GHG emissions from 2017 to 2030. They've already made that goal by 2022. They're designing a CO2 capture for Burns Harbor. That's going to reduce 2 million tons per year. U.S. Steel's corporate goal is to reduce 20% by 2030.
So that's gonna be done by,
These are their,
the Burns Harbor is gonna be done by when?
didn't capture that immediately. Those are just some examples of, I think they're doing stuff, and so you're right, we probably could incentivize them or at least acknowledge those efforts. Yeah. Okay, here's my whole slide about carbon capture and hard to abate, and yeah, so in our baseline, 6% from lime, 10% from petroleum refinery, 13% from hydrogen. That was like 13% of the industrial process emissions were from Praxair. Wow. And then steel production. It's not surprising. So then here I'm going to pivot to transportation for the 2050 plus plan. Our transportation was the third largest source, highest after industry. And so if you break that down, based on I should disclaimer, these estimates are based on the model that ICLEI, International Community Sustainability Group, has developed, and they are based on global protocols. So they're not made up, but some of the protocols have more or less, I feel the least confident in the rail protocol, but there it is. So.
Did your previous diagram make it out? I'll see the last one.
No. So
It's gonna be okay. That was good. Like, put it in.
So the vast majority is from on-road vehicles, not that surprising. I was actually surprised that, the gasoline emissions were 3 times the, diesel emissions. But I guess there's 3 times as many cars as there are trucks. So this is sort of this was all modeled using the ClearPath system, which only has so many categories to divide the vehicles in. Once we are able to run carbon dioxide emissions with our mobile, our MOVES model, which is the Federal Highway and EPA's transportation model, I think we'll get more detailed. This doesn't account for, say, age of vehicles. That does. So there'll be some changes going forward. We just couldn't get that done. But really the focus for these 2 categories for reducing transportation emissions is reduce the amount of miles traveled or the hours traveled, or reduce the CO2e per mile. So it kind of that, whether you're going one way or the other or both, depends on the strategy or on the industry. So for gas and passenger vehicles, oh, and I should mention, aviation, marinas, and transit combined was less than 1% of all the mobile emissions. I do not have the port emissions from shipping. I couldn't get that data. So that would be another category that if I get it someday, might change this pie chart. Probably not that much.
Did you get that to the Port Authority?
Well, so all the different company, I was thinking the ships.
Oh, you're talking.
They're all different companies there that, we tried to get it from Merit. We tried a couple different ways.
Yeah, I know that Merit is going through that process right
Yeah,
now.
it may be available in the future. Mm-hmm.
So that should be coming out probably from March.
That's the only big piece of the transportation sector that isn't captured here. So if you look at those 2 types of strategies, reduce vehicle miles traveled, reduce emissions from the vehicles driven, everything we've been planning since the 2040 plan here and recommending is make walking, biking more safe, more convenient, more attractive for people to do, increase transit availability, put things closer together if you can. An interesting one in the freight chapter. So I guess we have a shortage. They talk about the shortage of parking spaces. And some truck drivers drive around in circles looking for a place to park when they're supposed to be not driving. And a simple thing might be to add more parking spaces. And then there's apps that you can track them so they can find a parking space right away. That should be on the freight page. I can do that. And then to reduce the emissions is to get more into electric vehicles and lower emission fuels.
So we probably would need something to say that if it's that parking that you're doing, but less idling from there.
Yeah.
So that may be something we add, because we're getting increases, parking lots in the city, which is not favorable for us, but
That's
happening. But you still, with a community that's already environmental justice, and then you have these parking spaces, and then they're idling, and just contributes to
I think I have that on my diesel slide.
it. Okay.
Yeah. So, but then here's a map of where the electric vehicle charging stations are now, are the gold ones, and the black ones that are smaller are the ones that are coming in between NIPSCO and the NEVI program in the next year to 2 years. And then also the number of electric and hybrid vehicles that are registered in our 3 counties. We have 500 electric vehicles, less than 500. But
That's
maybe,
wrong.
and that was 2021, and 3,000 hybrids. So we have a long way to go for that. And I do think there's, those are all public,
Yeah,
publicly available.
or municipal vehicles.
Oh,
Do you
no,
have
all
do
the
you have
registered
new
in our
ones
counties.
Chesterton?
What?
Do you have the new ones in Chesterton?
This is directly from the DMV,
Oh, okay.
how many vehicles are registered in these counties of this type. Hmm?
It's gotta be more than, like, 257.
It seems low, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know.
That's based off of 2020 data.
Oh,
by county, by VIN,
Yeah.
and that number has been increasing by, 260% year over year since 2017.
Great.
So on statewide, we're gonna be looking at 50,000 vehicles by 2025.
So 61 for LaPorte is a bit off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but it's 2020 data,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so you have to take that with a grain of salt, just because all the different models that have come out in the last year and a half, 2 years alone, that's been increasing steadily.
Right. So the table is just Northwest Indiana data. I mean, unless they're registering their cars in Illinois, which is always a,
Yeah, it could be leasing.
one of
that
the,
it's not even-
yeah, I don't know where how does leasing work?
You still have to register.
They still register it.
So the big challenge too is availability.
Yeah.
People are on waiting list.
Absolutely.
So, but you can see like in I can't read my notes, 2020, the electric started really picking up. But it's still less than 0.25% of all the vehicles.
Is hybrid sales going down?
No, it's actually going up, just
Okay.
because it's like a gateway. The only thing that's hurting hybrid is just because they're going to full electric, so the availability.
They're not making, like they could make it hybrid.
Yeah, so they stop making a lot of models and just, can move to all electric.
This is, so there's more discussion in the chapter itself about, all the things that are happening. But you can see in our region, it would appear that we have some gaps. There's not a lot in the rural areas at all, as far as charging. Although I would say, and with even a hybrid, you could get most anywhere in the region on charge. But, and also there's a gap you can see in Gary and Chicago.
Do they have those on the toll road listed? As the toll road?
Yeah, the portage of the, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, diesel, reduce idling and traffic congestion, improve the parking availability and technology, so they're not doing that. And promote transition to electric where appropriate, or lower emission fuels, which we're doing with clean fuel corridors. We've had Drive Clean, and we funded CNG refuse trucks in several cities. And also there's propane and electric school buses, all moving towards lower emission fuels. And then the project example I have, I'm actually really excited about the Indiana Harbor Belt project. So they're gonna, by replacing, instead of idling the whole entire 3,000 horsepower locomotive, they'll have an auxiliary power unit that's only, I don't remember how many horsepowers. And so they're gonna save 6,000 tons a year. And Indiana Harbor Belt is just in like Northwest Indiana. It's in North Lake County and then maybe Blue Island. It just so
So to build upon that, so there's, the average age of switcher locomotives is 1966.
Oh,
engine
yeah.
per year.
they range. There's 33, and they range from like 1945 to 57.
And so they don't have a liquid cooling system like we do with our cars with antifreeze. They have to use water.
Okay.
And if that water freezes, that's a total engine rebuild for them.
Okay.
And, in Northwest Indiana, we have 4 seasons, and 2 of those seasons are winter. So they have to idle them year round. So these hours is close to over 5,000
Yeah.
hours that
Per
they're idling, just so that they don't seize up. So they go from a 2,500 to a 3,500 horsepower engine to a 22 horsepower engine. And the fuel savings is massive.
And this was the carbon emission reductions, but I was thinking about the EJ impacts because they're idling in Gary and East Chicago, and all that diesel emission, and they're so old they don't have any engine standards. So that I think this will be a huge just on the ground air quality improvement. So we need more projects like that.
And they're coming.
They're coming, they are coming.
There's a
All the
lot
money
of-
that Kay mentioned, yeah.
Like Kay said, there's a lot of projects that are going on here in Northwest Indiana, and I'll talk about some of the things that we have available afterwards, but they're coming.
I didn't really put a lot in about the residential and commercial energy piece, because it seems like that's basic energy conservation stuff. So, but I did put quite a bit about the forests and trees and climate change. So 17% of our land is in forest cover. And again, the trees, the forests, and they have two categories in this model: forest and trees not in forest. So trees not in forest are urban trees, but they also might be like the trees that fill up the drainage ditches in the agricultural areas.
Okay.
But the forest is almost 1 million acres, and then those combined, the net removal was 500,000, almost 500,000 tons of CO2 over a 4-year period. Oh, 19,
Is that
that's 16 to 19, 2016 to 2019, not 19 to 19. So it's about 110,000 tons per year. But looking at the land use change between 11 and 16, we lost 1/3% of forest, but we planted 14, half of that. So we're still losing more forest than we're planting. So if we want to use some of the forest and trees to count on for carbon removal, we need to work on that. We could work on that ratio a little bit. This is showing from on the right from 2016 to 2019 land conversion from forest to different categories. We didn't have any land go from forest to ag. We had quite a bit of grassland converted to forest. I think those are tree planting activities from Shirley Hines did a lot of tree planting. We had a little bit kind of forest to wetland and wetland to forest, almost the same. I don't know what that is. And then we had, on the pink is the conversion away from forest to something else. And on the green is planting of forest.
The pink is what?
Land conversion away from forest to some
Okay.
other land cover. And then I tried to be cute with icons. So I got agriculture, grasslands, wetlands, and development.
I get it, Ken.
Thank you.
We used to have timber as an agricultural crop, but we see less of it. But we still have some Christmas tree farms.
Yeah, there's
Any data on anybody that's doing commercial growing as opposed to?
I did not, that's not included here, but I actually do have that. I know how to get that data. The harvesting of trees does produce more emissions, but we didn't have, it was kind of insignificant, so I didn't really make a chapter here.
Well, it's not typical around here
Yeah.
because the tree stock isn't good for
Yeah.
veneer and other lumber purposes,
Mhm.
or too urbanized.
I mean, so this model did not consider the, like the agricultural land that's being converted to developed as really a significant carbon thing. So just to looking at the rate per conversion, right? So on the left are emissions produced from converting land from one use to from forest to these other uses per acre. And then on the right are how many tons of carbon per acre are pulled out of the air. The one I thought was really interesting was the non-forest tree canopy loss is almost 40 tons per acre. So if you cut down an acre worth of street trees, we have all the emerald ash borer. That's the other one. The insect disturbance had emissions. So that's why this category is netted out, because the trees are sucking down carbon, but then they have these other things that cause it. These are all things we can actually influence at the local level, right? But we still have to go a long way. So I found a thing, we planted 10,000 trees through community tree partnerships in the last however many years. And I Googled around and I found maybe if you were planting them at 25-foot spacing, that would be 70 trees per acre. anyway, did some math on that, and that came out to 42,000 tons of trees, and then they grow for the many years. I would like to check that with some other tree calculators, because I think that we could get better numbers. This is where Jen's part.
Yes, sorry, I'm
We
just
are
making a
almost,
note.
no, I know.
Follow up on. Yes, so we have a couple of slides here, just covering some of the existing plans to increase resilience in Northwest Indiana. We do cite in the 2050 plus plan, there is a climate-friendly parks initiative, and Indiana Dunes National, should be national, I guess at the time it was National Lakeshore Action Plan.
Yeah.
So they have undertaken some planning to be climate friendly. That is existing. We did reference the Indiana Department of Natural Resources Wetland in Lieu Fee program that has been implemented, so that some of those wetland mitigation projects can be potentially more impactful and targeted. We did reference the cooperative invasive species management areas, which are at the county level. And I believe that Lake County and Porter LaPorte kind of work together on that. So they do have those cooperative weed management areas, invasive species management areas. We did reference the several watershed management plans that are effective on waterways throughout Northwest Indiana and their watersheds. A lot of good information there for protecting water quality, also addressing water quantities, so looking at flooding and things of that nature. But a lot of overlapping practices there recommended, such as planting riparian buffers and things of that nature. Conservation action plans, I believe we have another slide here showing a beautiful map that our new spatial analyst helped to put together. So in these conservation focus areas, a number of partners under kind of the Calumet Land Conservation Partnership and various working groups in these target areas sort of identified these sub-geographies in Northwest Indiana that are significant conservation areas. Some of them have significant protected land, and so partners got together to really look at the fine level detail of how to prioritize parcels for acquisition, for restoration, for making connections between these different conservation areas. So I think this was actually your slide, Kathy, that I did an intro to, but
your section.
yeah, but so 17% of Northwest Indiana land forest, 3% tree canopy outside of forest, which is where we're really trying to do the kind of community to increase that urban forest. That is significant in that it's providing those benefits of shade, cooling, air quality improvements in the communities where people actually live. In 2011 to 16, Northwest Indiana did lose just under 500 acres of forests and 142 trees outside of the forest. So I don't know if you want to go into any more detail on the specific conservation areas, or
this is from I mixed up two things, so yeah.
Oh,
no, that's good. I think just the conservation area part is where the unique part about this to me is that we worked all together. That if, depending on who owned the land, like Lake County Parks was at the table, DNR Nature Preserves was at the table, National Park was at the table. So it's kind of a consensus of these are the most important areas to try to save. So they're important for our resilience, but they're also important quality of life. And I think if you were around when we did the 2040 plan, we used the Chicago Wilderness Green Infrastructure Vision and painted like half the land, more than half the land area green, as all green infrastructure. And that doesn't mean it's not, but we're slowly narrowing down on what is really the most important to protect. And so these are kind of the place where we want to see more kind of nature-based recreation, maybe opportunities, public access, and conservation development.
So are we kind of giving some assistance toward directing people toward funding sources? Really, part of the problem is all these, or not all these, most of them are on private property. So do we need to buy conservation easement, or buy the land or find a not-for-profit, like Sherman Hines, to step in to acquire the properties when they're available.
Yeah.
And the big challenge is for most of the funding we do, we have to do an appraisal. And to qualify for the funding, the land often has a higher value to the owner than what we can afford to buy it for.
Yeah, I think that's one key issue here in the Calumet region, if you will, is, you know, there are all of these federal funding opportunities right now for conservation, you know, 30 by 30 attempts to, you know, set aside and conserve a certain amount of land by 2030. Being in a urban area with also significant conservation areas, I understand that the just like you were saying, the appraisals, the price of the land doesn't appear to get you as much bang for your buck if you're out in a rural area. But I think partners are trying to make the case that it does give you the bang for your buck because you're conserving the land where people live. So people are actually getting those benefits.
There's some municipalities that have started that, you know, and working with Sherman Heights, Save the Dunes, and taking some of their publicly owned, municipal owned properties and turning them over.
I do think there's a, you know, we put a lot about funding and things like that in the Greenways and Blueways 2020. So maybe we could grab some of that and see if we can update it for this plan. Also, I would mention that this is all in the Lake Michigan watershed. And my understanding from Joe is that NOAA is going to start having them do their habitat planning for the whole county. So we're hoping by the next round of that we can have similar level of effort for the Kankakee Basin, with also working with all the partners.
Like we have for coastal, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
When you identify a piece of property, for example, a piece of property we talked about many years ago, it's up for sale again. You go for 2 appraisals, with the average price of the appraisal, somebody else comes and buys more than I can pay because the average of 2 appraisals, they pay higher.
Yeah.
I lose a property and I pay for 2 appraisals, I'm out the money.
Yeah.
And then we're also running into problems with need cemeteries. I have no more cemeteries in the area, and people are complaining they don't have cemetery lots to sell. You know, these are all different issues, but that ties into the requirements for acquiring land too.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah. Well, and I think these conservation focus areas, so partners have been working together doing, you know, kind of a structured planning, standardized planning process for these conservation focus areas for years, kind of looking at it at a defined level. And then most recently, though, they've accumulated this into one conservation action plan alignment that kind of draws the connections between the two. So then hopefully they can kind of prioritize, you know, looking at bang for your buck, where, you know, what are the
I mean, they have to, but it's the same issue, right? Yeah, you have to have the money at the exact time when you need it, and
Are you looking at areas that are in the Kankakee watershed too?
well, as I just mentioned, that the NOAA is allowing the coastal programs, or maybe requiring them, they can do habitat planning now on the county level.
Right.
So we think the next round, when they do the next round of aerial stuff, that Joe said he would be able to do some of this for the whole, all the way down to the Kankakee.
I think that's on the agenda for the coastal program in July. Because they're identifying endangered species that are in that area.
Yeah, so we should be able to flesh that out for the whole region in the future.
I belong to the Arbor Day Foundation, and with my donations, they send me saplings of trees and bushes that will grow in our area. And I approached the town of Couts and offered them to take and plant all the items that I get. And their concern was then we have to maintain them.
Yeah. It's true, they're not free.
Maintenance is a big piece, because those first 2 years especially.
Well, we're a small town, so there's not a lot of extra money for dirt, fertilizing, planting them, maintaining them, and
Yeah.
so on.
There is unprecedented federal funding available if your town does have capacity, and it's not limited to the Lake Michigan watershed at this point, for community and urban forestry. And it's a 5-year funding cycle of millions. I believe for communities that aren't quote-unquote under-resourced, there is a 50% match, but it's a way to kind of double your dollars, and I believe that those can be used for planting, maintenance for that 5-year period. So you could potentially get some trees in the ground and keep them maintained for that 2 to 3 year period. Of course, there's ongoing maintenance after that period, but I think the bulk of that maintenance burden is in those first several years after planting.
But they could plan out and use that cost as his match.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
so they're
That's
not
exactly.
having to shell out money.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Couts is in Porter County, there's there's 2 garden clubs in Porter County that would be willing to help you do that. So, I mean, I think the option is there without having small communities a lot of money.
I was thinking about that. I was thinking about Master Gardeners, garden clubs, and I was thinking about 4-H too, and the
Girl Scouts?
extension, Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
Jen will sell out her daughter's Girl Scout troop for labor. Rent them.
Most people look at that 50% grant, they just go off and they forget that they can use, workforce that
Yeah.
contributes, in kind.
Yeah. Your municipal staff time, your truck costs, transporting trees.
That's an education effort we should look
I
at.
was gonna say, that could be a thing to do, like, look at
Yes.
the partners of Master Gardeners, like, Master Gardeners and 4-H are both out of extension, right?
Yeah.
Partners to help the smaller communities with tree maintenance.
But also to educate
And
just
on how match.
from this
Yeah.
group, how you match funds.
So we've
if
been
they-
matching our community trees with 3 years of watering.
Yeah,
Is enough to be the 20% match.
It's been 20%, and I will say that I am absolutely confident that the partners who are planting the trees and maintaining them are exceeding that 20% match. Sometimes it's a little challenging to get that reporting data back so that we can report it and continue to get funding. But easily, I mean, I think easily, if you're taking those trees that are valued at maybe $100 for the type that we plant, just the cost of transporting them back, getting them planted, watering them for 2 years, putting mulch down, easily meets
but
that
you know,
value.
Jen, also the Lake Michigan Coastal Grant funds can be matched like that, and I don't think enough people understand that. So when it comes time to submit your grant application, looking at it and thinking you have this huge amount of money you have to come up with, when you don't, and you can sit down and figure out exactly how we're gonna do that. I know Maryville's done it, I know others have used that in-kind match.
What we need is to help the small towns and cities, because usually the larger cities have grant writers. They know the whole game, so to speak.
Anybody that pays their
But
grant.
Bob
writers.
probably signs on to this, and his council's gonna say, Bob, you're now responsible for this whole thing. And that's the story we have in our small towns.
Yeah.
But as long as the small towns have the tools of the
Right.
wherefore, and we're able to, I'm looking at our schedule that we're gonna approve, maybe one of those days could be grant funding, how you match. I'd rather have us do this than bring in a Chicago group that loves to do this and charge 40% of the grant funds. Let's give people the tools here. IU's gonna set up a class, starting in the fall, just for municipalities on how to write your own grant. So it's not hard. And if you have the right guidance, you can do it, and you're not spending that enormous amount of money.
Are you offering that free of charge?
I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
Reggie and I both
I've been
we've done
after-
it, but we're not gonna volunteer.
I sit on SPIA's board, and I've been asking for 6 years now for the universities to offer grant writing support to the communities.
I heard you at the last meeting.
Yes.
and it's-
Well, they
and it's
had that
different. We
grant,
did.
they had that, because we were gonna do it, be a grant thing, and then we didn't wanna compete with SPIA's grant
And
thing.
we did recently, in cooperation with US Forest Service and Urban Waters, we held at Purdue Northwest, a grant funding workshop, kind of focused on the forestry opportunities.
Yeah.
It was kind of a roundtable. It was a lot of smaller organizations that don't have that capacity, just kind of visiting different topics, one of them being Match. But yeah, it was really well received, and we do have materials from that available if anyone's interested.
One of the professors that teaches grant writing, Joe Comanstico, is going to help do this, and it's going to go, I think, hopefully, Kay, through Cure, that we could get it out there. And then also provide guidance for part-time employees and students to work in that area. So, yeah, I don't think it's a conflict at all. I think there's a way we can work and get this done.
Is that class offered up here and how much is it?
Well, it's going to be covered by, you're not going to have to pay for it. It is going to be offered, all these are at IU Northwest.
Is there a possibility of bringing it here?
What do you mean here, like in this
In
room?
this room?
Yeah, we could maybe think about that.
Because that puts us more central to all three counties, or have a movie showing in Michigan City.
Okay. And plus we don't have the parking problem at IU Northwest.
Good point.
So, yeah, we had a huge stormwater training there a month ago, and we've had the NICE meeting there, but it is parking initiative, so.
But I will say, if there is interest from communities in this urban forestry funding that is on the horizon right now, reach out to me. I've got my head in it because NERC does plan to apply for some items. So, if there's interest, just reach out and we'll see if there's a way we can help you. We also have other partners who are very involved in spreading the word.
And I would flip that on you, Jen.
Yeah.
You need to reach out to the communities and say, we can help you on this
Yeah.
particular grant. There are so many grants out there, they don't know what they're missing.
We don't have anybody to do research to find out what's available.
Exactly. I mean, the
That's a
EJ
big
grants that are out there are just
We just
phenomenal
have
for the
to-
communities to utilize with their neighborhood groups and things along that line.
Mm-hmm.
But, and that's where I went also after all the 6 universities and said, you're all in a community, you all say you work with do something.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
This is on YouTube, isn't it?
It is. Somebody just sent me a note saying we're on YouTube.
One thing I will plug for is the Urban Waters program. They do have a newsletter, and they are the Urban Waters Ambassador. It's a federal program.
Yeah.
They have a very good newsletter that their ambassador, it's a full-time position, housed out of Purdue Northwest. Get on their mailing list. Send me your email, I can get you on that mailing list, and they do a great job. I use it as a resource to keep tabs of these different federal funding opportunities that are coming up.
But don't you think you could have a day where we look at funding and we look at like Michigan coastal funding, we look at
Good idea.
DNR, everything that says here, for small communities, like Kevin said, municipalities, big municipalities have someone there that's doing it. So let's put everything together and offer this and say, you come, we're going to show you, like Michigan Coastal Grants are coming. And they're going to want suggestions from the communities when they do those grants. And we need to let people know they're out there and they're being available.
That would be a good, quick, full commission presentation. I think if all the communities are there, and a lot of staff in the communities are there.
You could do it that way, Bill, but I have watched at full commission meetings, sorry, Kevin, but there are some of you that you get lost halfway through.
Yeah.
And so we could lay it out and say, here's what we're gonna do through the EMPC, and we're gonna have it on this day, so send someone from your community to find out.
Because you see bears and everyone, sometimes you see the light bulbs, it's like, oh geez, I didn't know that was out there. Just a short, even just one slide, here's
When we gave
$20
the
million of grants that are
when
available.
we gave the presentation to the full commission on the MS4 new permit, it was like people sitting there going, what? And then getting all kinds of calls saying, what do we have to do? So this way, let them know it's coming and let them find someone that can attend. The townships and the smaller communities can be on our list.
So, is this like a motion or a recommendation that
Yes.
NERC staff do a whole nother unfunded mandate? Just asking.
No, no, I think it could be a motion to provide education, grant funding education to municipalities in Lake Porter and LaPorte County through the EMPC committee. People that sit on this committee can help do that. Okay, what did I say wrong?
It's much bigger than that, so I'm not sure that you said anything wrong. I'm looking at the Inflation Reduction Act and the Build Infrastructure Act and the Department of Energy grants and EPA grants, GLRI, Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. I mean, it's much
It's
larger than environmental. I reached out to all 6 of the presidents, whatever they're all called at the universities, about 2 months ago. I got a bug up my back end and said, you all have grant writing capabilities, why are you not providing services to the communities to access this extremely large volume of federal dollars that have been made available by this administration? And I felt I had given them enough of a push in my email that they could run with it on their own.
And they didn't.
All of them came back, we'd like to meet with you to discuss. I don't know the answer as to what all these dollars and cents are that are available. So,
Honestly, I mean, and I wonder if we should take this and have like a little working group to
Yeah.
talk about these ideas, because what the best thing that ever happened to me was maybe not the best. This is
Meeting your husband, no.
Yes, that was,
I already
no,
We already-
when NDOT Federal Highway said we're not taking in-kind match anymore, and I had to subcontract the entire public education program to, Drive Fleet Indiana for green fleets, because their expertise in energy grants
Right.
and energy, and they are helping all whoever wants help on those particular type of grants. I got a go-to person, go-to company, and they have expertise. I almost feel like we need like, we need like
Great Lakes.
we need like 5 of those for all these different topics.
For Great Lakes, I will say, and I'm sorry, I keep looking at it, was my former position, actually, the urban waters that I keep referring to, but that is actually what that full-time position that's housed at Purdue Northwest, but not affiliated, it's an independent position, they work with IUN. But that is what they're tasked with, full-time, keeping an eye on these funding opportunities, specifically in the environmental field, like you said.
So if you look at those
Together.
entities that are out there, and we pull that group together, and particularly if we need to march someone from the universities in here, did you ever get to Valparaiso? Okay, so we gotta go back and pull some of these people.
I mean, and each university did respond to me, and it was the president's level, and they all wanted to meet with me, and I'm like, I didn't say this to create more work for me, I want you to
Yeah.
introduce the concept to your faculty, because someone there should be smarter than me to say, oh yeah, we've got this team of professors who do sociology and environmental and political science and financial. I mean, to me, this is a fundraiser for the universities, because they can do the overhead and make, they will get paid for managing these grants that the communities need help with. I mean,
I would just say, as a person married to a former academic, that they have a lot of others. I think that was a thought that, we've been trying to get that together for a long time, and I think the pressure on universities to do a lot of other stuff and
What's
faculty.
interesting is that there's.
The best time is when they're trying to get tenure. That's when they're
and-
really
and
hard.
That's why you look at the adjunct professor staff and you don't look at the tenured professors.
And there does
And
seem,
we have been begging for things to do for the adjuncts to be involved in. And I'll take this to them and to the, you talked about expanding the SPIA school and people not registering for this is what it is. Everything from planning to the environment. So, and Purdue has the same thing. Leslie over at in Hammond, so let's bring people together and figure out within a reasonable amount of time, I don't want to be doing this at Christmas, and find,
That's my
ways that we can help.
Yeah.
The small communities, and if we have to have a chart like that, and I don't know if you've ever seen the, like Michigan Coastal Program, when they have their charts up and the grants, and here's all the stuff. We could do something like that. It's gotta be a hands-on thing. It's
Yeah.
got to be, here's the tool for you, here's how you do it, here's the sheet that you have to fill out, here's the information, and let them go.
And I'm honestly wondering, we did something a little bit similar to this just a few weeks ago at Purdue Northwest, and invited a lot of the smaller municipalities, but also community groups, walk clubs, that kind of thing. And it went really well, great attendance, it was very interactive, people shifted from table to table, topic to topic. That was Urban Waters and US Forest Service. I helped out doing one of the tables. I think I spoke about post-award follow-up. But yeah, Save the Dunes was involved. You know, CRT, Chicago Region Trees Initiative was involved.
See,
But
I
I
think
could approve
sometimes
it.
you forget the weight that NERC carries, okay? That this is one organization that all the municipalities of Lake Porter and LaPorte County understand and know, and their
Okay.
elected officials are
Can-
involved here.
Can we do this for the July 6th meeting, our meeting, just invite all these folks that we're thinking might have input into grants from the universities, from, you know, everywhere. And just invite them to our meeting. We'll call it kind of a working group meeting to get a plan for how to get this information in front of municipalities and get those relationships going so we can get grants out to our community.
So you're talking about the not-for-profit, NGOs, the public universities,
Yeah.
all included.
Everyone who we're thinking about, to get them in the room and just say, we're gonna, you know, discuss they can give a presentation on their grants if they want to us, would be great, but then the ultimate goal of getting that information to these communities.
Yeah, I can reach out to Urban Waters, because like I said, the event that we held recently could be easily kind of
Could
duplicated.
you put a
or-
list together of everybody that you want, what you're, to focus it a bit?
Well, I would appreciate if all the people here with this idea would submit some
All right.
suggestions. We have some ideas, but, and we could make July 6th as one of our open meeting slots to hold a workshop or a working meeting or a work group. And
Okay, so that's the formulation group, right? That's
Yes,
what you
the-
want?
Yeah.
Okay, so then, can you look at August the 3rd, is where you invite the municipalities to show them how to write a grant?
Well, August 3rd, I'm hoping to bring the climate action plan for recommendation for adopting at the commission in September.
Okay.
I hope. That doesn't mean we couldn't have something afterwards.
We just need to look at the due dates on the grants, when they're due, how much time you have to get them in. And I imagine Kay's got all that stored in her desk.
I don't.
I mean, there's so many different things, there's so many different fundings.
There is specifically, again, for the environmental parts. There is some guidance, some fact sheets out there that show in a lot of detail the funding opportunities that are on the horizon for environment. So for things like carbon reduction, air quality, water, forestry, I could send that out. Certainly now it was sent several months ago, and it lists, these are the ones that are on the horizon. It does not necessarily list exactly when it will be released.
Okay, so then that would be the focus of the teaching meeting. So you take that information and you put it in front of them, so that they can see it, not say just go online and take a look at it. This is what we're gonna train you in.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to use. We're doing that at the MS4 annual meeting. We're having an MS4 workshop on Monday. We don't normally have workshops, but we're doing this. And these people that attend, the 50 people attending that workshop, will walk away with tools in their hands to be able to get something done. And not just a PowerPoint and not just a lecture, but they'll have something to do it with. So we need to give them something.
And I'm perfectly okay going outside our scope a little bit in case we got other funding
Yeah.
sources, I mean, or whatever you're thinking. I mean,
So,
but-
let's
Throw
For
our ideas into
example-
an email to Kathy. and
Yeah,
we
throw all this stuff
got
in.
through her agenda, and I really railroaded her on a couple different times here today, and I apologize. I need to leave here by 11:15ish.
I think this
Well,
is
we-
good. I'd
we
rather
can-
do this
yeah.
than just go through a bunch of stuff
Yeah,
and adjourn it. This is good stuff.
Well, we can follow up and setting something up for July.
Yeah, we could try to set up something for July, which would be the working meeting to plan the bigger effort.
Okay.
To invite them.
Can I just suggest that prior to that meeting, that we just look into the agencies that are already providing this information about all the grants that it's already compiled?
Yep.
Because it's already out there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just that, there's not someone centralized in Northwest Indiana who is just feeding this information to all of the
And some of those, we could even invite them to attend and say, help us get your information out there.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then just make sure that there's a point person in each community that is receiving the information. So whether it's the full emergency commission or whatever it is, just make sure that information is being shared. It's not that it's out there. And
Yeah,
I think that will give some guidance for
To your-
universities in terms of how to help us.
To your point, Brenda, there is a lot of information out there, so maybe it is kind of just facilitating, making sure that that information gets out from NERC to our lists.
And then how to help the community. That's the question is, here's the information, here's people with skills, here's small towns that don't have capacity to figure it out. How do we put those together?
I get a slot on those full commission meetings on the agenda. so
To
I can-
report on.
Well, there's no time limit on that, so I can stand up and talk and do whatever I need to do.
Well, that would be a good time
I mean,
for you
Within
to
reason.
ask these elected officials, choose somebody from your community to
Right.
be your go-to person for grant writing.
Yeah.
Not expecting every elected official to be able to do it, but
Right.
maybe they have someone
Totally.
that can bring the information back and the skills back and do it.
Well, do we need to keep?
What?
do we need to-
Yeah, I think we have a
I'll
plan
start.
going forward, so maybe we should go, where are we in the agenda?
Yeah, let's keep
Finishing
going.
this,
Let's move
this is
through.
almost done. You can-
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, just one more slide here on other plans to increase resilience. NERC in this past year did develop green infrastructure policy and guidance for transportation projects. So I know you probably can't read that diagram very well. I didn't want to go too deep on this because we presented on it before when it was first launched. But for several practices that are recommended as green infrastructure in transportation project settings, we have worked with Department of Natural Resources Lake Michigan Coastal Program to develop a coastal resilience needs assessment for communities that some of you have probably been nagged by me to take a look at this for your community, really. Again, something that might set you up for funding opportunities through FEMA. Just doing that legwork of seeing what your needs are, how prepared you are for coastal flooding, inland flooding, stream erosion, coastal erosion. And transportation vulnerability assessment is something that is on the horizon. Kathy, did you want to?
Yeah, we just need to get an RFP together, because we are gonna do, the next step, which is have a contractor to help us identify the most vulnerable assets, transportation-wise, work with all the communities.
You were gonna send me this qualified.
I know, I actually made a note to ask Laura to make it
Okay, thank you.
this is a different one, but yeah. The
This
one,
is more,
yeah, this is more tailored for what you would want. I was trying to get it put on our website so that you could just get it yourself, but that didn't. That was all.
24 hours to comment.
Has staff gotten any comments?
As of Monday, not really.
We got a couple.
Couple?
We got a couple that were from the actual public, and then we got several that would come from, like, people like all of you who have read it.
Oh, yeah, remember, because Connie sent one about
Yeah, and I've got
sidewalks in
some on
Highland.
the transfer report of people who were like on my committee who read through it and saw stuff that they wanted to change, and we got several comments that way too.
Mhm.
I just want to bring it up because this is on YouTube and people,
Yes,
the public is.
if you think there's important information missing, like grants, how to fund this stuff, then, yeah, that's good to know.
should we start a call line?
All right,
I know.
thank you, Kathy. Anything else? All right. Moving on, the board for planning partners. Who wants to go?
Yeah, it is really.
All right, so we have some different updates here. I'll give some hangouts while I'm talking. So today we're at another region meeting for region leaders at the Dean Barbara White Center. The Northwest Indiana Partners for Clean Air Luncheon Awards is tomorrow at Hammond Marina. There will be 2 scholarships announced for 2 high school seniors located to the local.
What if we didn't sign up for that? Can we still go to the luncheon?
I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah, double check.
Michelle Mordry was an item. Mowbray?
Murday?
Murray? I don't know your name.
Murday, yeah.
Murray, okay.
Okay, and
Sorry.
then,
It's been a long meeting.
5, and then on May 9th, we have the Indiana Clean School Bus Consortium. This is with us in conjunction with NERC, IDA, US EPA, Department of Energy, Indiana Department of Education have started the Indiana Clean School Bus Consortium. We have a monthly meeting where we talk about the different funding opportunities related to school buses and schools. And then on 6/1 of this year, we have the Northwest Indiana Green Fleet EV Zoning Boot Camp, Ordinance Best Management Practices. These are for communities. Please sign up for that. It's free to attend, but that will be here at NERC. And then we have the Partners for Clean Air Day at Gary South Shore Rail Cats on August 13th. And please sign up for that as well. And then on the 22nd and 23rd, we have our annual conference and expo at Michigan City at the Blue Chip Casino. This is Indiana's largest transportation conference with updates on hydrogen, electric, natural gas, and propane and other clean fuels. So getting into grant funding, we have the Charging and Fuel Infrastructure Grant Program. We're going to be putting in an application with NERC, and we're looking for interested parties to participate in this program as it relates to charging stations for communities. If you're interested in this, this will cover 80% off the total cost of installation and purchases related to the charging station install of 5 parking spots for 4 charging station dispensers. Minimum of 6 kilowatts per dispenser, charged at the same time. 80%. If you're looking for propane, natural gas, or hydrogen. If you're looking for DC fast charging opportunities as well, this will cover 80% of that opportunity. Those must be 4 dispensers capable of charging at 150 kilowatts per dispenser at the same time, limited to 1 mile off the alternative fuel corridors within the state of Indiana. Please contact me if you have interest, because we have a great opportunity to do this. We have another opportunity that we're working with the schools in the area. It is the 2023 Clean School Bus Program. This will fund up to $395,000 per electric school bus and $30,000 per propane school bus for prioritized districts. This is a good opportunity, and we're already working on a number of different applications for this. We will be submitting a group opportunity with this. It will be highly successful. There's about $56 million available for this. Applications are due August 22nd. And just to reiterate, back to the CFI program, we need to get in touch soon if you're interested, because applications are due on the 30th, and there's a lot of things that go into grant writing. So just timing and everything related to the grant discussion. This was open for about 60 days. 60 days we have to put in a submission to request $250 million per application for a grant. There's a lot of herding cats that takes place for this. So biggest thing to start planning yesterday. Yes, sir.
I don't remember what time is the luncheon tomorrow. I think I
11.
signed up.
Starts at 11.
At 11?
Mm-hmm.
It runs in a couple hours.
Yeah,
Yeah, 2 hours at
yeah,
least.
usually, by the time we get the presentation from the commissioner and, awards,
The arena's open, you just tell them that you're,
yeah, just tell me you're there for lunch.
just tell them where you're going.
Right, how many people, I just was texting with Michelle, how many people here want to go that haven't signed up? Reggie?
How do I know that I signed up or not? I think
You
I
know
did.
what, we meet tomorrow. The problem is, I'm knee deep in MSR annual meeting stuff tomorrow, so I
Okay,
can't be in two places as much as I would want to.
is there anyone else that's here that might want to go that did not register?
I got 2 staff already with
Okay,
I think I signed up.
I'll let her know that you think you did.
I think I did.
Okay.
If you have signed up correctly, you would have received a confirmation email
Yeah.
yesterday or today.
Just, okay, well, I haven't looked at anything recently. I just got my laptop back, so maybe in my phone.
So we have Victoria to do what Ryan just did for other water and nature type grants, so.
I didn't say this as well. There's also a port truck emission reduction grant that is available as well. That is $160 million, and that is due
What is
end
that
of
for?
June. Port truck emission reduction grant.
Port, trucks at the port?
Yes.
Is that what that means?
Yes.
Okay.
That's 80% funding as well.
Who would apply for that?
The port, NERC,
Oh, okay,
most likely the port.
okay.
I imagine any of the corporations and businesses out there too. Not.
Most likely not, just because it needs to have a public sponsor.
What about the city?
City could, yes.
How would a city, the port is its own entity, how would a city get involved with that?
They'd have to do a partnership.
Yeah,
There's
it's
a-
not like they're doing it on port property without the port. It would be a
It'd
partnership.
be an MOU or something.
Any questions? Definitely sign, if you're interested in electric vehicles, definitely sign up for the June 1st event.
All right, thank you. All right, anyone else?
Well,
Okay.
his list made me realize, so Earth Charter Indiana is having the state climate leadership summit in Northwest Indiana, IUN, on September 8th.
When is September?
So, all the climate planning people will be here.
I have an announcement.
Nope. Go, brother.
Okay, so the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative is holding their annual meeting on June 6th through the 9th in Chicago this year. And the title of the conference, so to speak, is called Climate Action Perfecting Your City Plan. So whether you have a climate action plan or you're looking to do a climate action plan, there will be sessions available to assist communities, especially those around the Great Lakes, with your moving your city forward with a climate action plan. So there is there's a push to get mayors or communities in Northwest Indiana to attend the conference. So the John Athenberg is providing scholarships for mayors to attend for free. And if a staff wants to participate, it's at $200 for the registration. Can I share that with you?
Yeah, do you have a thing that maybe we could announce it at commission?
Yeah,
It's
I'm
gotta
gonna
be
forward
before
you
then.
this, but
Yeah,
that
that's true.
information that I just announced, I just got that yesterday for mayors to attend in this, to attend at a reduced rate.
Yep.
And then.
Yeah, send it to me,
for-
I'll have Ty to send it individual.
So
When's the
I'll
next
get that.
commission meeting?
May, there's a board meeting.
May 18th.
May 18th is a,
If you could get it out
yeah,
earlier, that
yeah.
would be.
No, I think that would be something to tie us on that
Okay, I'll give it
as
to
an
you.
individual, yeah.
Okay. So we got a great lineup of speakers and individuals to assist.
Where is it going to be in Chicago?
At the Marriott Hotel on the Magnificent Mile. My mouth is just really dry. On Michigan Avenue,
Great.
Marriott Hotel.
Thank you.
Bill, earlier there was a discussion about the flood hazard, 100-year flood hazard, the number of potential construction sites with it. One of the issues we're faced with right now, the best available floodplain layer, which was introduced last year by the Department of Natural Resources, that we thought was about as good as it could get. The legislature has decided that they're giving municipalities and governments the option of what flood layer they're going to address. So when we're talking about that, it's still not defined exactly where it should be. So it's kind of, you got some gray areas.
So let's-
Well, it does have gray areas.
So communities can choose where their own floodplain is?
Not exactly, but there's a lot of flexibility regardless of the, dare I say it, the science.
But if they wanted to buy flood insurance from the National Flood Insurance Program, do they have to follow the
That's the FEMA floodplain.
FEMA floodplain?
Yeah.
But the DNR did a
Oh.
more precise,
Okay,
best available floodplain there based on LiDAR that was.
okay.
I didn't
And
think
more
they had a
protective and, but unfortunately, my advice is kind of stick with that because I think it's the most conservative. But then there are allowances and options that the state and the Fed are dealing with. So it's kind of like I said, there's a lot of gray areas to this for some reason. And that's when you're talking about the number of constructions in a flood hazard area. It's, we don't want to be misleading, in essence. The other thing is that the Senate Bill 390 and Senate Bill 33 address solar energy this session. Senate Bill 390 has some incentives for municipalities to participate in solar farms or wind farms. But Solar Bill 33 also addresses the removal. Ultimately, we always anticipate with any structure that somebody has to take care of these things in the end and remove them from the site and dispose of them properly. So things are being done, at least on the state level, to address a lot of the issues and concerns that people have with the alternative energy sources.
Thank you. Reggie. I just assumed Reggie would have an announcement.
Oh, yeah, MS Ward, it's coming, it's in a week. We're trying something new this year, and that's adding these 2 work groups on Monday. We're getting kind of a mixed feeling about it, but something else that we're going to be doing is a review sheet for people that attend. We'll have it up online, and for them to get their training certification, they'll have to complete the review sheet, and then we'll send the training hours. There are training hours for Monday, 5 hours for the workshop, 5 hours for the annual meeting, and these are hours that are required in the permit. One of the really interesting things I think this year is that we have it set up a little different, with single sessions and breaks in between. Hopefully, when Randy Broad from ITEM gives his address, he's going to tell us about industrial permits, okay? As of today, we have 351 people registered, and that's a huge amount. And for the workshops, we limited at 50, and those are full. So I'm excited. I think we have some great presenters. great information, and the key is education equals compliance. And it's all in keeping the waters in Indiana cleaner and finding ways that we can help new MS4s. There are 50-some new MS4s. There are a lot of new MS4 coordinators. So the goal here is to be able to tell these new guys that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, that we've been doing this for 15 years. There are plans out there, there's water quality characterization guidelines, there's everything that you can look at and choose what you want to do. The biggest feedback I've been getting is this is overwhelming. So we hope that when they come to the annual meeting, they'll go away saying, I got an idea. It's not so overwhelming. I'm excited. You can still register, but the registration is late. So it goes from 145 to 245.
This is the weekend.
Yes, the 15th and 16th. And we're at a new hotel. We're at the Embassy Suites in Plainfield. Has good and bad. When you're from Northwest Indiana, you forget anything south of the Kankakee in the month of May is race month, and that's all you hear and see. And so a lot of people coming in like that hotel, so we may find another place next year.
All right. Any other reports? All right. We just had some announcements for your information of our meeting schedule. Yeah. Oh, okay.
No one announced
What's that?
No.
You have another one?
No, I don't. I thought we were at announcements.
No, it's more just the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I over, I skipped.
Oh, no, that's fine.
there are two other items. These are DERPC announcements, I guess.
Yeah.
I just put in the packet, it's not really to vote on, but the rest, all the dates for the year. The drive, so you would have the Drive Clean Indiana workshops and when our EMPC meetings are scheduled for official meetings. We just talked about adding the grant meeting on the 6th. I'm also working with Coastal about possibly putting a fluvial morphology workshop here. So
what do you want to do on August the 3rd?
August the 3rd, I'm hoping to have our climate action planning framework ready for recommendation and release for public comment.
Okay. That would be a good time to introduce anything new that comes out of the annual meeting from IDA.
Okay. Also in your packet is Laura and I went through who we thought were the organizations. As some of you may or may not know, this committee is a multi-stakeholder committee. We do have appointed commissioners that are appointed by the chair of NERC to sit on the different committees. These are our guest chair is also appointed. And then because we are the Council of Governments, every municipality can vote. If we have a voting, if they show up, these happen to be some that have actually applied people. Commissioners can also appoint for committees, commissioners can appoint a staff person to attend on their behalf.
So you need an appointment from the city of LaPorte?
I don't need one, they had one before and they don't now, so some of these I might check, do you want to appoint a staff person, but I think some of the staff people were self-appointed, like, so when Sarah went to Coastal and then she went to the city of LaPorte, she wanted to come to EMPC. And this is just like, these cities actually have made appointments to this committee, or staff people, but any city that comes is allowed to vote, at least only one vote per city.
That's not what it says.
What? One vote per organization, and then we do have stakeholder members that are voting members. Okay, I don't really have any people for most of the industries anymore, and I don't know if you know anybody who wants to be.
It's very difficult to get the industry folks out of their offices following COVID and Zoom. And so, and it holds true for my office. I mean, I was by myself with one person, but I had 15 on Zoom.
Yep.
And starting at 9 o'clock, you're asking them to make a 45-minute trip away from the office and a 45-minute back to the office in a couple hours. So it's, it is a challenge, and I would offer that, that you think about offering Zoom so people can Zoom in versus YouTube. A lot of corporations aren't allowed to use YouTube on their computers. So, not that that's going to get to anybody official, but
Are you finding that Zoom is being cut out and they're going to Microsoft Teams? The municipalities are, I'm finding that with a lot of,
Well, we are because you use Microsoft already.
Yeah,
It's the easiest
yeah.
thing. So you don't have to pay for a subscription for Zoom.
right,
So.
Right, I mean, we're doing
I
both.
use Zoom like people say Kleenex.
so do I, but I can't.
So whatever works.
So the subscription to Zoom is priced based on how many people can act. So we only have a handful of people that can actually schedule a Zoom meeting and be the administrator to start with. So, but anybody can do Teams. So we can certainly talk about having Zoom. But the other problem is when you have a Zoom meeting, we have to have more staff because somebody has to guard it for comments and abuse, and somebody has to monitor who's joining and not joining, and it's a lot more staff intense.
So I participated on YouTube, and I really be wanting to say something, and I don't want those comments. Right, and that, then you kind of, or you may or may not even look at them, but
No, that's
especially during a
feedback.
meeting, if you have something to say, it's not even recognized, but the Zoom, the YouTube is just a little distant, so distant. And sometimes that's the best way that I can attend.
You're saying YouTube is best?
No.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
that's what I thought.
Can you comment on that? No.
You can type something in there, but you guys won't see it until after.
We would know, right, if we look at it.
I would be able to see it. Would I respond right away? Probably not.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm taking that as feedback that
And put Teams in. I mean, I didn't know that Teams was free and Zoom, I mean, I knew Zoom had a charge, but I didn't realize Teams was free.
So if you have a Microsoft subscription.
I get it.
Yeah.
Well, I watched in LaPorte County, the commissioners meeting that's up on Zoom, and their people interact, okay? So they raise their hand, so we could have interaction here.
yes, but you just can't vote, but you could interact.
Why couldn't you vote? They have a thing where you raise your hand.
Government's not
No,
allowed
it's a
to have
public
voting
government, public
meetings
meeting.
on Zoom.
We can have a public meeting on Zoom, but you just can't vote, so you don't.
Okay,
I think that's something that we should consider looking at from a legislative session position.
good idea.
I haven't once in a blue moon.
You know, somebody asked me the other day what happened to the EFPC meeting that was run like Tommy's doing and Charlotte and her husband and all the, they would come every month and, yeah. Did you ever go back to monthly meetings?
Well, we're getting there. What are we at? I mean,
A number of years ago, we calculated how many staff hours were taken
Oh.
in preparing a monthly meeting, and it was exorbitant. I think this is honestly, this is the only committee that really has its own life outside of NERC. So I've tried to, split the baby. So we're putting the full force of NERC staff in the meetings that are advisory to NERC actions, and then trying to provide a service and help with other regional activities to the best we are able.
So from the committee that's here, you have your EMPC meeting, which you guys will coordinate. But then when you have these other work sessions, you're calling them, instead of saying workshops, I would like to see EMPC, educational opportunities or something. And then put one of us in charge of it and say, this is your, May it's you, September it's you, put the program together, give it to you guys, and have the committee approve it.
Well, so instead I've taken a more volunteer approach, is all of these dates are available if anyone wants to have a
Okay.
project meeting, a group meeting, so, I guess, or a workshop.
Yeah, but that's gonna be
Um,
great. Boot camp.
Yeah, you had a lot of people at the last one.
Yeah, we had just under 50, I thought.
Yeah,
So, that way, well, cause I don't wanna tell people what to do. I invite and offer.
I think it's good.
the only difference with NICEWAG, if we wanted to hold one, is we meet the first Tuesday and this meets the first Thursday, so maybe we could change it, instead of meeting on Tuesday, meet on Thursday or something,
Yeah, maybe, sure.
and then have at least one or two of them here,
I think that'd be good.
yeah.
They get some other communities involved too.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so now you're gonna look for me to make a bigger commitment. September 7th, do you wanna do a NICEWAG meeting on September 7th?
Nobody's claimed that one yet?
What?
Did anybody claim that one in
No.
this way? No,
Oh,
nice
nice
way.
way.
Good point.
I will.
I better go look at that
Step
before I
on
do
toes.
it.
Yeah, you can let us know. I mean,
Yeah, let me check and see. We got a lot of dry clean things, you guys. Okay, let me
first come,
check
first
that out.
serve, right? Grab them up.
I'll send you my list where I look at the calendar,
Okay.
I'll work with you on that.
Thank you. All right. Got our next meetings listed here. Yep, so the official one, August 3rd, and then we have the boot camp on June 1st. And then the other one was July 6th, we're gonna look at doing these.
Yeah, the meeting, the
Yeah.
grant expert meeting.
All right, any other business for the committee? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Adjourned.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We're adjourned. Oh.
There we go.
Done.
Thank you, everyone. That was good.
Thank you.
Y'all next time.
Okay.